So you were watching a bunch of anime and decided you wanted to make a dual sword build. Well, you're in luck, because today I'm going to teach you how to become an absolute monster with dual swords in Nioh 2. Now, dual swords are a build that I am very fond of. In fact, it's my favorite style of play in this game. In the original Nioh, I had almost 1,000 hours, and roughly 500 to 600 hours of that was spent with a build exactly like this. I took this all the way through Way of the Nioh, I took it up through most of the Abyss. It is a build that offers a ton of health, a ton of defense, and even though it seems like it's a tank-oriented build, it offers a buttload of damage. This is also a very noob-friendly build because it has so much self-sustain and so much damage combined. And very quickly here, we're just going to do an overview, and then we're going to deep dive into everything. Now, this is obviously a New Game Plus oriented build, if you couldn't tell from the fact that I'm in all divine gear, but the basic gist here is we're going to run a Master Swordsman's power, and we're going to combine that with Prolificate Sinner to get melee damage versus paralyzed enemies up. We're going to put more melee damage versus paralyzed enemies on our accessories, and then we're going to do absurd amounts of damage like what you see in this clip here. Now, while the damage isn't as high as it was in the original Nioh, we're also not working with ethereal gear yet, and quite a few of the perks that we used to have aren't in the game yet, as we're still missing DLC in the higher difficulties. With that being said, this build is more than capable of absolutely slaughtering the Dream of the Strong, the New Game Plus difficulty, and so we're going to go in depth into everything now. Now, for our weapon, attack bonus skill is the first stat we want. Saturation accumulation to help imply the water that we also have imbued onto the weapon. Life drain melee attack to give us a little bit of self-sustain. Mid-attack break is actually getting re-rolled into final blow damage, but I ran out of Fabled Umbrasight. And then as for the inheritable, right now we have active skill key damage, which allows our active skills to just do that much more damage if someone is blocking, or to Yokai since they don't really block. There's probably better inheritables out there, but they've changed up what abilities conflict with others, so for the time being I'm just running with that until I find something else. For our secondary, we're strictly using this to get the 3-piece set bonus for Prolificate Sinner. Now you'll notice I only have 2 pieces of Prolificate Sinner on, and let's cover that. That is because of the Yashikana Magatama. Now, as for farming one of these, it's just random in New Game Plus. You cannot get this in New Game. It is strictly a New Game Plus only item. I happened to get mine from one of the story missions from a enemy that was hosting the Dark Realm. Just killed him and it popped on out and I lost my shit. But yeah, there's no concrete way to farm this right now. The community will probably find one in the coming weeks, so just keep your eyes out. Anyway, back on into the gear. If you have your Yashikana, you want to run this to pick up the 3-piece, and that'll give you the 40% damage on paralyzed, which will help with bursts when you paralyze enemies. In a similar fashion, if you have Yashi, you can run the rifle here, as well as Master Archer's bow, to pick up the 20% bow damage and life drain on bullseyes. So what's nice is even if weapons aren't active, the set bonus stuff is active. So even if I don't use this weapon, that melee damage versus paralyzed enemies is just a general stat that is considered active all the time, which is also why it's nice to have ranged weapons that are from sets in your build if you have a Yashikana. Now, with that in mind, ideally you want to get damage bonus familiarity on whatever ranged weapon is your primary. Even if it's not out, as long as it is actively equipped and not in the background slot, your main weapon, in this case the dual blades, will benefit from damage bonus familiarity. Now moving on into the set, we have Master Swordsman for 4 of the pieces. Now to get that, you're going to want to go to the dojo here, and you're going to want to do Master of the Dual Blades. You can farm the set off of him in New Game. You need 180,000 proficiency to get the quest, and you could farm it up then and run it in purple. You can also drop the plans in New Game. I got the plans in New Game myself. But if you're having really bad luck getting them in New Game, once you get to New Game Plus, you can fight him again. You need 300,000 proficiency, but the reward for beating him in New Game Plus are Divine Blades, Divine Chest, and a Divine Waist from his set. It's actually how I got my swords, because he didn't want to drop the plans for the swords. And then as for Male Factors Curious, I'll actually show you the mission you can farm this from in just a moment. We're going to be doing that mission, in fact, on this video. But I ran the chest for this and 4 pieces of Master Swordsman because just look at this fashion. That dude looks badass. I look like I'm gonna beat somebody up and steal their wife and their swords. Anyway, looking at the stats on gear, stats have also changed up on gear a little bit. You can't just stack tons of defensive stuff, or excuse me, tons of offensive stats anymore. I'm sure you could still take attack and inherit attack on over to pieces, but of course that involves finding gloves that have inheritable attacks. So for the time being, we went for a lot more utility. In particular, we have elemental damage taken while guarding. We have faster winded recovery, and we have tenacity damage over time. These things do not stack, but you ideally want to have them on one piece. Having this ensures that if you're on fire or poisoned, you can't die from that effect. You'll just stay at 1 health. Faster winded, obviously great if you end up getting your key broken, which is pretty hard with a build like this. And then reducing elemental damage taken while guarding is just icing on the cake, because let's be honest, sometimes you can't dodge and you just need to block. And this is actually a block heavy build, so it works. Beyond that, it's a lot of just kind of general stats and utility. So enemy sensor key, defense, life, defense, increase attack, defense, dual swords. I have a lot of item drop rate. I have item drop rate on 3 of the pieces, which is great because that helps to farm texts. You can get attack on the gloves, so we roll that on. Life and running speed on the waist, and then running speed, dodge key consumption here. Now, as for our accessories, the 2 main things you're going to want are the ones you see scrolling. Saturation accumulation to help get water applied to enemies even faster, and then melee damage versus paralyzed enemies. I haven't seen a melee damage versus saturated enemies. I don't think it exists. I'm pretty sure it only exists for paralyzed and poison, since those are status. But if somehow you find melee damage for saturated enemies, I would 100% pick that up. That is an awesome perk to have. But beyond that, it's really whatever you want. I'm just happy to be running these because they have key life and those 2 stats on them. Yashikana because you actually need it, but you don't have anything in particular. The Japanese scissors give anima. This gives soul core drop rate. You know, the comb gives Amrita gauge charge. You can run whatever style of accessory you want here. You just want to make sure you get that bonus versus paralyzed and that saturation bonus. Now, as for our items, we have paralytic ground fire. This is going to be our bread and butter for fighting human opponents. In addition to that, I also have tiger running and quick change just for lulls. In the Omyo tree, we have both weakness and barrier talisman, which are solid pickup choices. And then that's about it in terms of our Omyo ninjutsu. For our spirit, we're running Izanagami. Now, this is an awesome spirit for a build like this, because we're getting an extra 15% damage after we saturate the enemy. That's going to stack with the already innate bonus we do to enemies when they are inflicted with water. We get an attack boost if we ever have to actually use a medicine, which is kind of rare because we have so much self-healing, an extra 250 health, and then an anima bonus of A- when we're guarding, which we're going to be guarding a lot because dual blades are a great guard-heavy weapon. So that is going to build up a ton of anima for us. As for our spirits here, we got Yuki, which is going to give us more melee damage over saturated enemies. We got a Magatsu Warrior, which will give us anima charge bonus from cumulative damage, so we're building up anima from both attacking and blocking, and 2% on active skill. And then Kappa, just giving us a little bit of life drain on water attack and some bonus to our block. Moving over to the shrine real fast, just to show the backup spirit, we are running with Yaonami Hime. This just gives us more life drain, water attack. I don't know if that actually stacks with Kappa, but you know, there's not many inheritables here. Actually, you know what? I don't know if it does stack with Kappa, so screw it. Let's just put Mikami on because everyone likes final blow damage. Moving on from here, let's see, we covered the cores. Let's cover our actual points here. Now, in New Game Plus, obviously, focus is going to be skill. Skill up to 99. Magic and Dex, I would suggest bringing at least up to 10 each, just for capacities on them. Stamina is up to 51 to put us into the B category for agility. Strength to 14 to meet stat requirements. Courage to 10 because why not? And Constitution has basically become my dump stat here. Every other point I get from here on out, I'm just putting into Constitution to get my life even higher. Going into our skills and what you're going to want in particular. Over here in Dual Blades, most important thing, Sign of the Cross. This is going to be your primary damage dealer. This is what is going to shred enemies. Beyond that, it's good to have the Shadow Strike passive for more damage from behind. Obviously, you're going to paralyze the enemy, get behind him, drop out a fat Sign of the Cross. And then Defensive Arts is really nice because we get a lot of key back while guarding, and you're actually not going to really dodge that much with this build. You'll be focused mainly on guarding. Beyond that, it's really just dealer's choice. I would suggest Firm Resolve in terms of the Mystic Art. As long as you keep attacking, this will give you a building up defense buff, which means enemy hits you and it tickles. God of Wind is a nice move, I think. Moon Shadow is nice to break the key on enemies who keep guarding. In top stance, I'd recommend Windstorm over Water Sword. Water Sword does a lot of damage, but you need an enemy who's just going to stand in it, and that's kind of rare. Final Blow damage passive, obviously no brainer here. As for the stuff from Ninjutsu and Omyo, Paralytic Ground Fire is over here. Tiger Running is here. Quick Change is over here. And Omyo. Barrier is over there. Weakness is over there. Now, in our Samurai tree, I want to point out Damage Boost skill. You're going to want to have this to put on an active skill. And then in the Shiftling tree, you're going to want Arcana of Vermin. The reason for these two skills in particular is we're going to customize some skills with them. In particular, we put Vermin on Windstorm. This is going to allow us to still paralyze enemies if we're in something like a dojo mission where we don't have access to all of our items. And then we put the damage boost skill on our sign of the cross just to make it hit that much freaking harder. Once you pick up those passives, you just go here, you hit square, you pick whatever you want, and you assign it to a weapon. Another one that's really good here is I put Moonshadow, deals an extra 20% key damage, which is nice because Moonshadow is designed to break keys on enemies. So, I mean, there are very few instances where I do a Moonshadow and it does not shatter the key of whatever I'm hitting. So, over to the Blacksmith real fast to talk about remodeling. Now, with remodeling, you can essentially increase the potency of your armor. As you can see here, I have it up in Reinforce. If I did Refine, it increases the stat requirements. This is standard. Reinforce puts it from 5.1 to 5.2, but increases the defense further, so do that. In a similar fashion, we're going to also want to do that on our sword, except you'll notice that we can change the scaling here. In this particular case, I've removed the scaling from both heart and strength and done it purely in skill. And what's great about this now is since I have a scaling skill, I have 99 skill, that takes care of all of my scaling, and now I can put any other points I have in Constitution to get my health higher. I can pick up more points in Omyo or in Ninjutsu if I want to mess around with that more, and I don't need to worry about trying to max out both skill and heart as I would have in the past with a standard scaling set of dual blades. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before we jump into some fights is an alternative to this set. Back in the day, the standard go-to was running the Tatanashi. You run Tatanashi along with Master Swordsman, and you basically get the 4-piece bonus here, the 4-piece bonus here, and call it a day. That does still work, but in testing I found that the damage bonus based on equipment weight here was basically identical to the plus 40 we're getting from attack defense dual swords. In fact, the damage difference was so close that it was like maybe 5 damage per sword swing. So given how minimal of a difference it was, in this case I opted to pick up the key pulse recovery by going all the way up to the 6-piece bonus, and then obviously the extra 40% bonus against a paralyzed enemy. So having covered everything, let's jump on in and do some fights. Right here we have the Master of the Three Evils quest. This is actually the one from the beta. This is asshole suicide bomb guy that everyone remembers. We're gonna show just how ridiculous this build is against humans. So we're going to just put out a trap right here. I'll put one more out here in case he wants to back up. Alright, come this way, friend. He's going to throw his stuff. Alright, we'll wait over here for him. And this is your general go-to for fighting humans. And he's dead. Dude stood absolutely no chance. Now, after seeing that, I know a couple people are going to be like, well, this is a gimmick build. You know, you just paralyze stuff and then do damage. And against humans, if you're familiar with endgame Nioh, this is what you do. Because I'm not going to fight this guy fair 100 times to get a smithing text, plain and simple. Which, by the way, that's Prolific at Sinner set right there. All of these quests, just for those curious, two quests we're showing off are in the Dawn. Dawn is the 4th region. And this next one is going to be taking a look at some early game bosses. So, you know, kind of trying to keep spoilers to a minimum here. But this time we're going to fight one of the bosses with Paralyzed, one without, just to kind of show the difference. Because you can do the Paralyzed stuff on Yokai as well, but it's not needed. If you're in a situation where you want to do it, it helps, but by no means is it necessary. We're gonna hit him with it first. let's get you in your trap now. So you can see, we can still paralyze bosses and do silly amounts of damage if we want to do that. But it's not needed. I'm just gonna let him hit us for a bit here. Ow, please don't. Look at our freaking health. Look how resilient we are to this. Look at him. Here's his grab attack. And this is New Game Plus, by the way. This is the power, ladies and gentlemen, of dual blades. Absolutely goofy. Now, before we wrap up, the last thing I want to leave you with here is a technique. Now, if you're attacking and you just go to do your move, it takes a little bit of time to get that out. But there's actually a trick here. You're going to want to tap R1 in circle, hit forward on your joystick for just a split second, and then tap it again, and it'll look like this. And what we're doing there is we're essentially animation canceling the whole sheath process. So instead of having to sit while he slowly puts his swords in, you tap it and move, and it cancels that animation. And so you're able to do. And it basically lets you get your sign of the cross out roughly half a second faster. So in fights where you're trying to get that out as quick as possible, it's a nice little technique. Additionally, one thing that is very nice to do with a build like this when you're fighting human opponents is counter them with the strike. That's going to knock them down on the ground. You then basically you do this, go in, sign of the cross, and then you can final blow. Hitting them as they are recovering from strike with a sign of the cross will almost always set you up for a final blow. So either way, guys, that's going to wrap things up. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Dual Blades is like I said, this is a build that is very close to my own heart. I love it. I love it. It's a ton of fun. It's super resilient. It deals ridiculous amounts of damage, and it's super flashy. So either way, thanks for coming by and watching. I appreciate the support. Up next, I'm thinking maybe we'll do a spear build. I'm not too sure. Might do, it might be a little bit because we got both the walkthrough prep and the walkthrough ongoing, but I like this build a lot and I wanted to get it out for y'all. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later with more Nioh 2.